All right. Today we're talking about a concept that's so crucial, yet so many entrepreneurs are sleeping on it. I'm talking about your break even point. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. Gary, that sounds like a lot of boring accounting stuff. But here's the thing, this is the kind of boring stuff that puts money in your pocket. And if ever there was a hidden gold mine for your business, this is it. So let's start with the basics. What exactly is the break-even point? Simply put, it's the point where your total revenue on this side equals your total cost on this side, right? So you're not losing money, but you're not making any money either. You're breaking even. Simple, right? But here's where it starts to get interesting. I would say it gets exciting because many of you out there are struggling. I know that because I read your emails. You're working your tail off. You're not seeing profits. Why? Because you don't even know where your break-even point is. You're flying blind, hoping to hit profitability by sheer luck. And that's not how successful owners operate. And I get it. There's a period of time when after you launch, but for a period of time, you're not going to turn any profit. I've been there with nearly every business I've ever started. And this could be 18 to 24 months on average, sometimes longer, depending on the business and the type of industry you're in. Amazon took over 7 years before they turned a net profit. But if you at least know where your break even is, you can strategize. You can get there much quicker, and hopefully you can springboard to profitability faster. So that's what we're going to look at today. So let's break down the break even point formula. And don't worry, I'm going to make it simple. And I'm going to give you a PDF at the end of this so that you'll have this information, right? This is a formula. I have a cheat sheet for you. You can download it. You can print it out. And you can use it in your own business. So here's what the break-even point is. Simply put, the break-even point is your fixed costs divided by your price minus your variable costs. And I teach this in my business analytics course at the university. So it's not hard to understand. So let's start by defining these terms. First one is fixed costs. Now, these are your expenses that don't change regardless of how much product or services you sell. So think things like rent, salaries, insurance, those stay the same. Number two is price, right? This is how much you're selling your product or service for. And then number three, this is your variable cost, right? This is the cost that changes with each unit produced. So in other words, think of your materials, your packaging, your direct labor, things like that. Now, hey, if you're new to my channel, this is Startup 3. I'm Gary Smith. I'm a U.S. Army veteran. I'm a business and marketing adjunct professor, and I'm an entrepreneur. And if you like what you're learning so far, what you're hearing in this, go ahead and smash that subscribe button and hit the notification bell, because that lets me know to go ahead and create more content like this each week for you. That said, let's look at this break-even point example I have for you. Now, this is John, right? John makes cell phone cases. And these aren't just any type of cell phone cases. These are the heavy-duty, super strong. They're drop-tested cell phone cases. You've probably seen some of these before, super strong. They're made to work in nearly any type of environment. Now, these things are tough, and the people who buy them typically give John very positive reviews. But what do the numbers actually look like? That's what we want to get behind and take a look at. That's where you're going to find out what's actually going on and what you need to do. So let's start with his fixed costs, right? So his fixed costs are $5,000 a month. That's for rent, for equipment, for lease, and for basic salary. Each phone case costs him $5 to produce, and he's selling them for $15. So John's break-even point calculation looks like this. $5,000 divided by 15 minus 5 equals 500 units. That means John needs to sell 500 phone cases just to break even. Anything less, and he's losing money. Anything more, and hey, that's pure profit. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. Once you know this number, you can start making strategic decisions. Things like, should you raise your prices? Should you cut your costs? Should you increase your marketing budget? Your break-even point is the key to answering these and many other questions. These are just probably the most popular because they have the most ability to move the needle. All right, so let's play with John's numbers a little bit. Let's say that he decides to raise his price to $20. Now his new break-even point is going to be $5,000 divided by $20 minus $5 equals 333 units. You see that? Just by increasing his price by $5, he's reduced the number that he needs to sell to break even by 167. That's powerful stuff. Another thing that John can do is he can negotiate with his suppliers and he can get his variable costs maybe down to $4 per case. Now his break even point would look like $5,000 divided by 15 minus $4 will equal 455 units. Again, he's selling fewer units to break even, which means he can start making profits sooner. This is the kind of thinking that separates the amateurs from the pros, the winners from the losers. It's your business. You need to know your numbers. Right? So that's what we're going to go through today. I hope these examples are helping. Now, I know some of you are thinking, but Gary, my business is different. It's not as simple as just selling cell phone cases. I offer services and I charge by the hour. Okay, I get it. Every business is unique. Every business is going to be a little bit different. But here's the thing. The principle remains the same. And the math is nearly identical. Whether you're selling, software, whether you're selling services, whether you're selling sandwiches, right? The math is almost identical. The formula might be a little bit different. So let's look at a service business example now. Let's say you're a freelance graphic designer. Now, your fixed costs might be maybe $2,000 a month for things like software subscriptions, office space, and marketing, right? And let's say you charge $50 an hour for your work, and your variable costs, things like your electricity or your computer or any materials that you use, those are variable costs. Those are negligible, right? Let's say it's $2 per hour. This means that your break-even point calculation would look like this. You're going to take $2,000 divided by $50 minus $2 to give you 41.67 hours. So in other words, you need to bill about 42 hours per month just to break even. And knowing this, you might decide to maybe make some changes. Maybe you want to raise your rates. Maybe you want to find ways to reduce your fixed costs or look for some more efficient ways to work so that you can go ahead and you can bill more hours. Now, once you know your break even, you can then strategize and you can make better decisions, which is the idea. Now, another powerful way to use the break-even point is in setting goals. So let's go back to John and his phone cases. Let's say that he wants to make a profit of $3,000 per month. He can simply reverse engineer this process and use the break-even point formula to figure out how many units he's going to need to sell. So here's what that formula would look like. Right, so we're going to start with fixed costs, right? So take your fixed cost plus your desired profit and divide that by your price minus your variable cost. That's going to give you your target sales. So for John, it's going to be $5,000 plus $3,000 divided by 15 minus 5. That means it's going to be 800 units. So now John knows exactly what he's aiming for. He needs to sell 800 phone cases a month to hit his profit goal. And that's with these current numbers. Now, with this knowledge, however, John can strategize, right? He can maybe, hey, I want to go and negotiate with my vendors. He can try to reduce his costs. He can raise his sales price, right? It may be just a few bucks, or he can do a combination of those things to reach profitability sooner, which is what I would recommend. Now, here's where many entrepreneurs go wrong. They calculate their break-even point. They only calculate it once, and then they move on to bigger and better things. They forget about it, which is a big mistake. Your break-even point isn't static. It changes as your business evolves. So maybe you hire a new employee. All right, that's going to increase your fixed costs. Or maybe you find a way to reduce your variable costs, which is a great thing. Also, market conditions, they're always changing, aren't they? So that might force you to adjust your prices. That's why I always recommend, recalculating your break-even point at least quarterly. It's like taking your business's temperature. It tells you how healthy your operation is and where you might maybe need to make some adjustments or some iterations. Now, while there are many ways that you can use to implement the break-even point formula to improve your own decision-making in your business, I'm going to share with you what I believe are 3 of the most powerful and profitable ways to use this in your business. Now, number 1, this is going to be your pricing strategy. If you're thinking about running a sale or a promotion, your break-even points, that can tell you, how low you can go without losing money. It can also help you decide if raising prices is a smart move. Sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. And we already saw an example of this when we looked at John's cell phone cases. So you have that. Number 2 is the cost management example. So now that we learned how to calculate the break-even point, we want to categorize your cost. Okay, these are going to go into 2 buckets, right? Your fixed and your variable cost. So let's dig into an example where we can go from breaking even to turning a profit. Now, let's say that you run a small bakery. Here's what your monthly cost might look like. So fixed cost, right? You have things like your rent, $2,000, equipment lease, $500, insurance, $300, base salaries, $5,000, making total fixed costs $7,800. Now, your variable cost, this is per loaf of bread, includes things like your ingredients, $1.50, packaging, 50 cents, utilities. This is just a portion used in production, 25 cents. So that means your total variable costs are going to be $2.25 per loaf. And you're selling each loaf for $6. So your break-even point calculation would look like this. $7,800 divided by your $6 minus $2.25 equals 2,087 loaves. That means you're going to have to bake a lot of bread just to break even. But here's where the magic happens. Now that you've broken down your costs, you can start finding ways to optimize them. So let's start by looking at your fixed costs first. Now, I want to give you 4 examples. Okay, number 1 is rent. Can you negotiate a better rent or better rate with your landlord, or maybe you're not utilizing all your space efficiently? So that means you might be able to sublet a portion of that and bring in some extra income. Number 2, this is equipment, right? And specifically equipment leases. Are you using your equipment to its full capacity? If not, maybe you can downgrade, maybe you can get a cheaper model. And number 3 is insurance. Now, when was the last time you shopped around for better rates? Probably never, maybe. Many businesses overpay for insurance because they just never bother to compare after they get that initial quote. And then number 4 is your base salaries. Now, this is a tricky one because you don't want to cut good people, but are there ways that you could increase productivity? So you might have to think about this. Could you implement maybe a performance-based bonus system instead of just giving a flat-out raise? In sales, we would call this our comp plan or our compensation plan. Now, let's explore 3 variable cost examples that you might be able to use and go ahead and optimize these. So for the baker example, number 1 is going to be ingredients. Can you maybe buy in bulk to get better prices or negotiate better terms with your suppliers? Number 2 is packaging, right? So is there a cheaper alternative that still maintains your product quality? This is a big one, and it's funny how often this one's overlooked. Last year in an e-commerce business that I'm a co-founder in, we actually found a way to save $900, and this is annually, right? Just by changing our shipping box supplier without losing any quality. In fact, I think that the new boxes that we use now are actually better made than the previous ones that we had, right? So they cost less money, and I think they're better quality. Number 3, these are your utilities. Can you invest in maybe more energy efficient equipment to reduce the costs over time? You'd have to explore this. Now, let's say that you've gone through this process that we're discussing and implemented some of these recommendations. So in our bakery example, let's say that you managed to reduce your fixed cost by $800 and your variable cost by 25 cents per loaf. So now your new break-even point is going to look like this. It's going to be $7,000 divided by your $6 minus $2 equals 1,750 loaves. Look at that. You've reduced your break-even point by 337 loaves. That number contributes directly to your profit. So let's say that you implement these changes, but you keep selling the same number of loaves as before, 2,087 loaves. So your profit calculation is going to look something like this. First, for revenue, you take your 2,087 loaves, you times that by $6 to give you $12,522. For total cost, take your $7,000 plus $2,087 times $2 to get $11,174. And then for your actual profits, subtract your total cost from your revenue. That's going to give you $1,348 in pure profit. So just by managing your costs more efficiently, you're able to make $1,348 in profit. Do you see how powerful it can be when you start to examine your break-even point and implement the formula in these ways? Just being very strategic with it. And don't forget, there's a link in the description below where you can go ahead and you can download the cheat sheet, right? Which has all the formulas on it that we're discussing here today. It's free. You can use it. You can go ahead and you can plug in your own numbers and you can actually see, maybe for the first time, what's actually going on in your business. Now, let me give you one more powerfully profitable way to use this break-even formula, and that is in scaling your business. Because here's the thing, if you've ever thought about expanding, your break-even point can help you understand how many more units you need to sell to cover your increased fixed costs. And for example, let's go ahead. We're going to use this example of being an online tutor, an online tutoring business. I like this example because so many of you out there are starting these types of digital businesses. So let's say that you're a math tutor and you've been crushing it. You're doing a great job with your online tutoring business, but you're at a point, you've reached capacity with 30 regular students and you're thinking about scaling up by hiring other tutors and you want to expand the subjects that you're teaching. Sounds great. But before you just go jumping in head first, great idea, but before you just take that leap, you want to crunch the numbers, right? So here's what your current situation might look like. Your monthly fixed costs would be, let's say, website hosting $50, a premium Zoom account $20, your marketing $20, your scheduling software $30. So total fixed costs are going to be $300. Now, your variable cost per hour of tutoring, let's say payment processing fees $2, digital materials $1, so total variable cost $3. Now, you charge $50 per hour, so your current break-even point is going to look like this. $300 divided by your $50 minus $3 equals 6.38 hours. This means that you need to tutor just over 6 hours a month to break even. You're currently doing about 120 hours a month, right? So 30 students, 4 hours each. So you're way past the break-even point and you're making some money. This is good, but you want to do even better. You're ambitious, right? You want to do better. You want to grow your business. So let's look at a typical scaling plan. And if you've never maybe seen or created a scaling plan, this will be eye-opening for you. So stay with me on this. Now, let's take a look at this. We're going to look at our proposed now monthly fixed cost, because these are going to change a little bit. So your enhanced website hosting, now they're going to be $100. Your multiple Zoom accounts, $60. Increased marketing, $1,000. These are going to go up, right? So advanced scheduling software, $100. Payroll software, $50. Your base salary, $4,000. And now you need an administrative assistant part-time for $2,000. So your total fixed cost is going to be $7,310 costs. Now your variable cost per hour of tutoring, figure tutor pay at 70% of your hourly rate, so $35. Payment processing fees of $2, digital materials $1. So your total variable cost, $38. So in this scenario, you plan to keep the $50 per hour rate. So let's go ahead and calculate the break-even point with this formula. You're going to take your $7,310, divide it by your 50 minus $38. That's going to give you 609.17 hours that you need to bill and you need to book. That is a lot. That's a massive jump. But let's break this down because the magic is in the details. Now, let's say, now that you've hit the break-even point, assuming each student it still takes $4 per hour of tutoring per month. You need to bill, 609 hours divided by 4 hours per student. That's 152.25 students. That's more than 5 times your current student base. So let me ask you this question. Is that impossible? No, not necessarily, but it shows you exactly what you're getting into. So you need to ask yourself these 4 questions. Number 1, can I realistically acquire and manage 152 students? 2, do I have the systems in place to handle this kind of volume? Number 3, can I hire and train enough quality tutors to serve these students? And number 4, is my marketing plan robust enough to attract this many students to my business? See, this is where many entrepreneurs go wrong. They just see the potential for growth. They're excited about it, but they don't actually crunch the numbers to understand what it really takes in order to make this profitable. But you're not like most entrepreneurs. If you were, you wouldn't be watching this. You're smarter than that. And here's where it gets really exciting, right? Here's where we're going to see how to make some money. What if you decided to maybe diversify your offerings? Let's say you introduce a group of tutoring. You're going to start group tutoring sessions. Let's say it's $25 per student. You're going to take 5 students per group. Now your average revenue is going to be 5 students times $25. That equals $125 per hour. And your variable costs for these group sessions, tutor pay, remember we figured 70% of hourly rate, so this is $87.50. Payment processing fees, $10. Digital materials, $5. So your total variable costs are $102.50. All right, so your new break-even point is going to look like this. $7,310 divided by your 125 minus 102.50 equals 325.78 hours. Whoa, this is much more manageable. You see, by just diversifying your tutoring services, which increases your revenue per hour, you significantly reduce the number of hours that you actually need to book in order to break even here. And here's the bottom line. Knowing your break-even point gives you control. It allows you to make informed decisions. It helps you set realistic goals. And most importantly, it shows you that path to profitability. And here's the thing. Remember that the example that we looked at with John and his phone case business? Now, after we worked on this and understanding and optimized his break-even point, things really started to turn around. So he raised his prices slightly, not a lot, but just enough. He found ways to reduce his variable costs, and he set clear sales targets based on his desired profit. And within 6 months, His business wasn't just breaking even, but he was actually turning a healthy profit, which is what you want in your business. In fact, he was expanding into new product lines and hiring his first employee. And that's just one example. And that's the power of really understanding your numbers. So it's not just about working harder. That's a given if you're an entrepreneur, but it's about working smart as well. And you don't need a degree in accounting to figure this out. So if you can add, subtract, and divide, you can figure out your break-even point, and you can work these formulas that we talked about today. So today, I want you to calculate your break-even point. And I don't care if it's just a rough estimate. Go ahead and calculate it. Just do it. Then I want you to think about how you can move that number, right? Can you increase your prices? Can you maybe reduce some of your overall costs? Can you sell more units? Remember, in business, knowledge is power. And knowing your break-even points, that's like having a superpower. So go ahead and do it now. Download my cheat sheet. There's a link for you right down there in the description below. It's free. And if you want to know more about how to launch, grow, and thrive during those first few years of your business, just click or swipe the screen to watch this next video.